Hello. My name is Jenny, and I'm a student of English literature. I'd love to tell you about my life in London and my fantastic teacher. You can read my story and learn English with me. It's a beautiful summer day, and I'm traveling on a train with two women. They're sitting opposite me, speaking English. I don't understand much, but I'm studying English and trying my best. I don't know many words yet, but I'm excited to learn. I started chatting with the lovely ladies and said a few words in basic English. They got what I was trying to say, which made me really happy. I told them I wanted to learn English, and they told me they were from England and were heading home from a conference. We chatted for about 10 minutes, and then it was time for me to get off the train. Before I left, they gave me their address and phone number and told me I could visit them in England. We said our goodbyes, and I went home, excited to work on my English every day. In just 6 months, I was able to translate texts and watch films in English. My English was already pretty good, but I wanted to learn more. So, I went to London to study English. When I got there, I joined a school. My first lesson was on Monday. I met my teacher and the other students in the class. My teacher was a young, lovely lady. She was very nice and humble. We introduced ourselves, and then we started the lesson. Our teacher had a question for us. She wanted to know our general knowledge about Our teacher told us she has a very effective method for learning English. It's simple. She said we wouldn't have to study, and we wouldn't have to read textbooks. We just have to use English a lot in our daily lives. It was really effective for me. I didn't like studying from textbooks because they confused me. Then we talked about what's important when we learn a new language. Our teacher said language is a purpose and a mode for communication. We need to use it. Languages help us to express ideas and thoughts. When you learn a new language, the best method is to use the language to express our feelings and to communicate with other people. This is what we will do in our course. We will speak and make use of the English language a lot. Many students try to remember new words and also study grammar rules. These students don't use English for speaking. They study about the language, but they don't use the language. There is a difference, of course. You don't have to study new words and grammar rules. You just need to practice them every day. In this course, I'm excited to show you a simple and effective way to learn vocabulary and grammar. Our teacher says, let's keep going. 2. How I learned vocabulary. Guess what? I went to school on Tuesday again. One of the students asked a really interesting question. She asked what the best way is to learn new words. Our teacher told us there are so many ways you can learn new words. I'm going to tell you the most effective way for learning new words. It's reading. When people read, they learn new words in their language. They learn twice as fast as people who don't read. It's a great idea to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I'd love to show you what you can do to get the most out of reading. First, it's really important that the book or text you read is something you're interested in. It's great if you enjoy reading, and it can be a nice story or it can be fictional or non-fictional. Whatever your interest is, make sure you read something that's right up your street. When you don't know many words, it can be a bit frustrating, but don't worry. It's totally normal to feel frustrated when you're trying to enjoy something and it just doesn't click. It's so important to choose a text that's interesting and at your level. When you read and come across a word you don't know, don't stress. Just take a quick peek in the dictionary and you'll understand it in no time. Not only will you gain a better understanding of the text, but you'll also expand your vocabulary. And the best part? You won't even have to write the word down because it'll be forever etched in your brain. And you'll always remember its meaning whenever you see this word again. Every time you encounter a new word, you'll do the same. Reading also has another great advantage. When you read, you learn new words and you also learn how each word is connected to other words in the sentence. You can see how to link the words correctly. This way of learning new words is very effective. Try it and you'll see how fast you can learn new words. Then we'll continue with the lesson. We'll speak about the situation in England is a great place to find jobs for students. I'm looking for a job to do in my spare time after school. I asked other students if they knew where I could find a job. They told me to go to a job center. The job center has lots of jobs, especially for students. I was really happy to know where I could find a job. When my day at school was over, I went to the job center. I didn't know what job I could do, so I asked the lovely lady at the job center what the best job for a student would be. She told me that they have some great jobs for students. She said that I could be a cleaner or a waitress in a cafe. I told the lady that I don't have any experience with these jobs. She reassured me that my English is good enough to work at the cafe. The training wasn't difficult, and I'd have more chances to speak English than if I were a cleaner. I'm so excited to tell you all the great news. I'll be starting my new job on Thursday, and I couldn't be happier. I feel so lucky to have found a position where I can practice English every day. On Wednesday, I went back to school, and there was one student in the class who was a bit quieter than the others. He's from South Korea, and when our teacher asked if anyone had any questions, he raised his hand and said he had a big problem. He knew that his pronunciation wasn't perfect, but he wasn't sure how to improve it. He doesn't speak much because he doesn't have anyone to listen to his imperfect pronunciation. He reads and watches films in English a lot and understands very well, but he also wants to improve his speaking. He asked if there was something he could do to be better at pronunciation. When my teacher heard this, she said, "Okay, I will tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it. I will. I'll also teach you some techniques that can really help you all become better at pronunciation." First, let's look at why students have problems with pronunciation. When we speak, we have to move our mouths and use muscles in our mouths. We all do that, but sometimes when you speak English, you use your muscles in the same way you would use them in your native language, and your pronunciation is different from the pronunciation of native speakers. This happens to many students who learn English, and it's totally normal. Almost everybody has a little different pronunciation, then it's totally normal. People usually understand what you're saying even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. But you can work on it and make it better with a great technique that can really help you. It's called shadowing, and it's really simple. When you do shadowing, you just copy the sound you hear. Kids learn their first language by copying their parents, and eventually, their pronunciation becomes perfect. It's absolutely perfect if you can learn English pronunciation the same way. You just copy what you hear when you hear it. That's all there is to it. Then our wonderful teacher went to youtube.com and searched for the shadowing technique. She found some great videos where the shadowing technique was very well demonstrated. We watched the video, then we all tried to do shadowing for about 3 minutes. Then our amazing teacher told us that shadowing is also great when you are preparing for a presentation in English and you want to have good pronunciation when it comes to presentations, you can always find a quiet spot where you can do shadowing for about 10 minutes. I promise you'll be amazed at how much it will help you to have better pronunciation during the presentation. This was such an interesting technique for me, as I hadn't heard about it before. When the lesson finished, I went to the school reception and asked the lovely lady if there were any sports activities at the school. I was excited to tell her that I'd love to do some sports in England. The lady at the reception was so friendly and helpful. She said, "Yes, we have a table tennis team and guess what? The football team has training today at 5 o'clock. I was so happy because I love sport. I went to the training of the football team and met lots of players from different countries. The players are from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I really enjoyed the training. I was so happy that my time in England started well. I have a great teacher and I also have some new friends from my football team. Tomorrow I am starting my job too. I'm so excited to have a good pronunciation and repeat after native speakers on Thursday. I went to school again, and we had a new student in our class. Her name is Elizabeth, and she is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asked Elizabeth some questions. My teacher knows Elizabeth because Elizabeth visited her class 1 year ago. It was a class for beginners, and it was only for 2 weeks during the summer holiday. When Elizabeth speaks, she speaks beautifully. Her pronunciation is very good, and she is fluent. My teacher, she was really happy and told Elizabeth that her school in Italy must be amazing. Elizabeth said, "I don't go to any school. I learn English at home using techniques that I learned from you. I do a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian. This is how I work on my English. The 2 weeks I spent last summer at your class helped me a lot. You showed me the way. I'm so grateful. I really want to work on my English every day, which is why I wanted to join your class again. 1 year ago, I was a beginner, but now I can speak English. I'd love to learn from you again." My teacher was so happy when she heard these words. She appreciated Elizabeth for her hard work. It's all very interesting for me. I already know about reading. I also know the shadowing technique, but Elizabeth also speaks about thinking aloud. I don't know what it is, so our teacher was happy to answer our questions. We asked her what thinking aloud is. She replied that it is a very effective technique. You have to have a strong motivation to learn English. If you want to benefit from this technique, it is also good to know that for some people this technique is a little crazy. But when you start to think aloud, your English can be better very fast. I said I have a strong motivation. I don't care if the technique is crazy. I want to learn it because I know it will help me. I'm happy to teach you this technique. It's actually very simple. You think in your native language all day, and that's perfectly normal. Now, you can start thinking in English, and when you start thinking in English, you can think aloud. All you have to do is say aloud what you're thinking. It's that easy. Why is it so effective? Well, our teacher says it might be because you can ask Elizabeth about it. She uses this technique, so she might be able to tell you more about it. Our teacher then asked Elizabeth if it was okay for her to share her experience with thinking aloud. Elizabeth was happy to do so. She said that when she first started using this technique, it wasn't easy. She began with very simple sentences, like, "I can speak English, it is good that I can speak English, I want to be better, I need to practice every day, I don't know many words, but I can use these words, and I can say my. I've got some ideas about these words. I can do this. This is great." The sentences were really simple, but at the beginning there was one problem. My thinking in Italian was long and complicated. I wasn't able to say in English exactly what I meant, but I said in Italian. I needed to find a simpler form for English. Simple English was the hardest part, but after some time it was normal for me to think in English. Then something interesting happened. I met a man from Australia. While on holiday in Italy, I was still a beginner, but we started to speak English. I was so happy to see that I was able to speak with him without having problems. My sentences were simple and short, but I was able to speak. I didn't translate in my head from Italian to English. After the meeting with the man from Australia, I started to use thinking aloud more. This technique helped me a lot with my speaking. I still use it every day. It is really very effective. Our teacher was really grateful to Elizabeth for sharing her experience with thinking aloud. I was really excited to try this technique because I also wanted to get better at speaking English fluently. When you want to learn English, would highly recommend doing the following: read, listen, think, and speak. Do each of these activities for 40 minutes every day. You can read, listen, and shadow hearing our base English stories. The voiceover in this video is given by English 5 Days.